I'm Tracy Sabol. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, protests and the Prime Minister. Benjamin Netanyahu delivers remarks on Capitol Hill while thousands of demonstrators make their voices heard outside. Addressing the nation, President Joe Biden prepares his first public remarks since dropping his bid for re-election. We have a preview from the White House. Focus on freedom. A religious liberty group takes a closer look at the situation for the faithful in Nicaragua. And devoted to God. Learn more about St. Philip Neri, born 509 years ago this week. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us on the Feast of St. Charbel. Our top story tonight, just days after announcing that he is no longer running for president in a massive historic political shakeup, President Joe Biden will speak to America tonight about his decision to drop out of the election and what comes next. The speech, which is expected to start at 8 p.m. Eastern, comes as the race to take his job heats up. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Tracy, tonight President Joe Biden will speak from the Oval Office. Now, earlier, his press secretary took questions from reporters on what he'll be discussing. All this as Vice President Kamala Harris and GOP presidential nominee Donald Trump hit the road for more campaigning.
In the White House briefing room, Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre steps to the podium for the first time since her boss announced in a letter that he's all done running for re-election.
It is not easy making a decision that the president made on Sunday. It is just not. It is not. And as you all reported, it is historic.
With 6 months left to go until Inauguration Day 2025, what does a now lame duck president do next?
We don't see ourselves as a lame duck president at all. In this period of time, this is a president that has been incredibly successful, and he's going to do everything that he can to continue to fight for the American people.
Meanwhile, just over 100 days out from the November 5th election, it's go time for both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Today in solidly Republican Indiana, the vice president addressing a key Democratic constituency as their campaign sees advantages with female, Black, Latino, Asian, and younger voters.
We believe in a future where the economy works for working people. That is why we forgave student loan debt for more than 5 million Americans.
Harris speaking at a gathering of the historically Black sorority Zeta Phi Beta in Indianapolis.
We are finally making it so that medical debt can no longer be used against your credit score.
And former President Trump nearly gunned down not even 2 weeks ago at a campaign rally in Pennsylvania, holding his first public campaign rally since President Biden dropped out of the contest, stopping tonight in North Carolina and then Minnesota this coming weekend. Trump characterizing his Democratic opponent as, quote, the same as Biden, but much more radical.
Also today, workers installed an extra fence around the White House ahead of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's visit here tomorrow. He'll talk to President Biden, of course, about the war in Gaza, and they'll meet with the families of Americans being held hostage by Hamas. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Okay, for more on the importance of President Biden's speech tonight, let's go to Allison M. Prash, Associate Professor of Communication Arts at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Allison, thanks so much for coming on today. We appreciate it. I know that you've studied the power of presidential speeches from George Washington to present day here. What do you think history can tell us about how President Biden can make this speech an extraordinary one?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. You know, we know that President Biden is going to speak tonight from the Oval Office, and history shows us that previous presidents previous to Biden have used this backdrop, this setting, to communicate really important moments and to speak directly to the American people. So, for example, we can think about Ronald Reagan and his decision to speak from the Oval Office in the aftermath of the Challenger disaster, or when George W. Bush spoke on the evening of 9/11 to comfort a grieving nation. And so in both those cases, these presidents really sought to unify the public. And in those instances, it was in moments of national tragedy. I think what Biden needs to do this evening is to provide an explanation to the U.S. public of why he's not seeking re-election, and then to call the public to really engage in their democracy in the coming days and weeks as we look forward to this presidential contest. He really needs to speak from the position of a president, not as a campaigner for either side, but really seek to address the problems facing the nation, and also talking about how he's going to uphold his constitutional oath over the next 6 months.
Allison, I want to go back in time for a moment to 1968 and listen to one of our former presidents, LBJ. Take a listen.
I shall not seek, and I will not accept the nomination of my party for another term as your president.
Allison, talk to us about how LBJ's speech, how that shaped the moment. And do you think President Biden's speech may differ from other speeches where a politician faced a potential end of the road?
Yeah, well, the example of 1968 is a really good one. It's on March 31st, 1968, that Lyndon Johnson announces that he will not seek the Democratic nomination for president. At that time, the primaries were still going on. Johnson was the assumed nominee, but it's obviously much earlier in the campaign season than Biden was doing. I think it's important to note that later on in that speech, from the clip that you just played, is that Johnson offers the reason of why he's not running, and he says, "I believe that my duties as president really are more essential than engaging in partisan politics." And so I think we can see some parallels here with Biden. Now we know, of course, that Biden was facing really difficult polling numbers, particularly after his disastrous debate performance in late June. And so I think for Biden, he needs to both explain why he's dropping out, but then also, again, seek to unify the nation to the best that he can. I think it's important to note that we obviously know we're living in a very politically divided moment. But I do think that Biden has the opportunity to speak to all Americans, not just Democrats, not just Republicans, about the future of the country that he believes can exist. And really, as he passes the baton to a new generation of political leadership, providing a space and a vision that all Americans can see themselves in, not just one that is directed toward a political party.
Allison, almost out of time here, but really, how important is this speech, and do you expect any surprises?
I think I would argue it could be the most consequential of Biden's lengthy political career. In terms of surprises, I've learned to stop predicting that there will be no surprises, because I think, if anything, the last few weeks has taught us that. But I do think Biden has the opportunity to rise to the moment, and I think it remains to be seen if he will tonight. But I think it really could be the most consequential speech that he has ever delivered.
Allison, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate your insights.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the U.S. Congress today, which remains deeply divided over the war in Gaza. But it was the notable absences inside and very loud protests outside the Capitol that made headlines as well. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales joins us now with more and tells us about this very busy day. Eric.
It was a busy day, Tracy. Good evening to you. Security remains tight up here on Capitol Hill, similar to what happens during a State of the Union address. They put up an 8-foot-high security fence which encircles the Capitol grounds. Roads were blocked off, and even some of the city's metro stations were closed, and arrests did take place. I want to show you some video that was just captured. It came out of Union Station near the Capitol. This was captured by Timcast News and was tweeted out by Senator Rick Scott. Pro-Palestinian protesters actually climbed the flagpoles outside of Union Station, tore down the American flags, and then set them ablaze as they were dancing around holding pro-Palestinian flags. Many of them out there have been criticizing lawmakers for having Netanyahu come and speak and claim Israel is committing genocide. Hours before the Prime Minister's address, protesters made their voices heard outside the Capitol.
How do we allow somebody who has been deemed criminal by the International Court of Justice to be here and get standing ovations from our politicians?
Abby, a Palestinian woman accompanied with her 2 children, rode the metro into town. She tells me she's against sending any money to Israel, despite it being our closest ally in the region.
You can't stand with people that they do not want peace. They refuse peace. They want to destroy all Palestinians. There is no exceptions.
Last night, more than 200 people were arrested inside a House office building as several hundred New York City police officers arrived to help with crowd control. Dozens of Democrats boycotted the speech, including Vice President and Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris, along with Illinois Congresswoman Jan Schakowsky, who is Jewish.
I'm really disappointed that he has been invited to speak in the United States by both Republicans and Democrats, and I hope that people will understand that he is a danger to the state of Israel, to peace in the region.
Republicans called the vice president's boycott shameful and say if Harris wants to become president, she has to support America's allies.
How can she be expected to be viewed as the leader if she can't fulfill this basic responsibility? This is her duty. It is your duty as the vice president and the acting president of the Senate to sit in that rostrum and host a foreign leader for their joint session.
It's reprehensible. This is a head of state, not only a head of state, but the Prime Minister of Israel at a time when Israel needs America support. And for Vice President Harris to basically give him the stiff arm and not show up is a terrible moment in American history.
As for the speech, Prime Minister Netanyahu called for continued U.S. support.
Our world is in upheaval. In the Middle East, Iran's axis of terror confronts America, Israel, and our Arab friends. This is not a clash of civilizations. It's a clash between barbarism and civilization.
You can tell there it was a very powerful and very fiery speech. Prime Minister Netanyahu isn't going home just yet. He's going to be heading to the White House tomorrow to meet with President Biden and Vice President Harris, and then he's going to be traveling to Florida to meet with former President Donald Trump on Friday at Mar-a-Lago. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
All right, thank you, Eric. Testifying before the House Judiciary Committee today, FBI Director Christopher Wray revealed new details on how the shooter carried out his assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump.
He was live streaming, viewing the footage from that, again, about 11 minutes in around the 3:50, 4 o'clock p.m. range.
2 hours before, he's flying a drone in the vicinity of the rally.
About 200 yards away.
Wray added that the would-be assassin Thomas Matthew Crooks had 2 explosives in his car and 1 in his home, but adds that he did not have the ability to detonate them from the roof where he was shot and killed. Wray says Crooks made Google searches about how far away Oswald was from Kennedy on the day he registered for the Butler rally. The FBI is investigating the shooting as both an attempted assassination and a potential act of domestic terrorism. Wray also confirmed the Iranian plot to assassinate former President Trump. The Department of Justice is now part of the investigation into the fatal shooting of Angela Massey. She was killed on July 6th in her Illinois home after deputies responded to a 911 call about a possible prowler. Just days ago, Sangamon County officials released body cam footage from the chaotic and gruesome scene. We warn you, though, some of you might find this disturbing.
Hot? Where are you going? Away from your hot steaming water.
Away from my hot steaming water?
Yeah.
Oh, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. I rebuke you in the name of Jesus.
You better not. I swear to God, I'll shoot you right in your face.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Drop the pot! Drop the pot!
Hard to watch there. 3 shots were fired, killing Massey. A grand jury indicted the now former Sangamon County Sheriff's Deputy Sean Grayson on 3 counts of first-degree murder. That's why Massey told Grayson, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." Family lawyer Ben Crump said that she had undergone treatment for mental health issues. We ask for prayers for Massey's eternal rest. And we have a lot more still to come here on EWTN News Nightly, including fighting for religious freedom. Learn more about one group's effort to shed light on the situation for the faithful in Nicaragua, and feeling the heat. Why the weather earlier this week set an unwanted record. Welcome back. The Supreme Court of Arkansas orders the state to count the signatures of those seeking to add a pro-abortion measure to the ballot. Initially, the state rejected the signatures on the petition submitted by the pro-abortion group. The group then filed a lawsuit. The ballot initiative would scale back the state's near-total abortion ban that took effect after the overturning of Roe versus Wade. In Washington, D.C., the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom held a hearing today discussing Nicaragua and the deterioration of religious freedom in the country. According to USCIRF, freedom of religion or belief has been severely restricted since 2008 in Nicaragua under the Ortega regime. Catholics in particular have been targeted in the majority Catholic country, with Catholic laypeople and clergy being arrested, imprisoned, and exiled, as in the case of Bishop Rolando Alvarez, who is now living in exile in Rome. And here to talk with us more about the situation for the faithful in Nicaragua and today's hearing is Jason Poblete, president of the Global Liberty Alliance. Jason, always good to be with you. A lot to get to, but first, your big takeaway from today's hearing, and what do you hope will come from it?
Tracy, thank you for having us as always and for highlighting what's happening in Nicaragua and other Central American countries and Latin American countries. You're right. I saw most of the hearing today, and I had hoped that we would focus, like you said, a lot more on the Catholics. It's a Catholic majority country. I didn't hear a lot of that. And in fact, some of the folks who were talking, they argued on behalf of the Catholic Church, were not really there speaking on behalf of Catholics. And I've heard from bishops, religious activists in Nicaragua that wish more of the plight of the Catholic Church would have been talked about. And one other point, again, it's always good to highlight these cases. But remember, what's happening in Nicaragua is not a recent phenomenon. This has been happening since 1979. This is not a recent 2018 issue. The Sandinistas, the socialists, Ortega's gone tomorrow, same problem. They have been trying to eliminate the Catholic Church from the public square. I didn't hear that today. I wish they had talked about it. In fact, one of the commissioners or the commissioner's staff had to raise the issue of the missionaries of charities that have been expelled from Nicaragua. Again, we need to focus a little more on what's happening within the Catholic Church. And my hope, Tracy, is that the Holy See will reconsider their decision to withdraw the priests and bishops from Nicaragua and send them back. That has to be point number one, because if we don't put that marker out there, I'm very concerned what Ortega will do. And it's not just Ortega. It's Ortega, the Sandinistas, the MRS, which is socialist light, just as bad as them. And they're doing this with the help of Cuba, with China, with the Russians. There's a lot happening that, again, I hope USCIRF will go back and look at this again, invite some of the Catholic organizers that are actually documenting the abuses so they can show them that this is not something isolated. It's pretty intense, and it's still happening, and it's not going to stop unless we take a stand. And the final point to the 350,000 or so Nicaraguan Americans out there, get out there and tell the State Department, tell your member of Congress, EWTN, you were there yesterday at the State Department asking questions. They didn't even know about the hearing. So that has to change, and we need the State Department to do a lot more than they are doing on the question of religious freedom in Nicaragua.
Yeah, definitely. Jason, you and I have talked about this many times before, but if someone's just tuning in and watching this right now wondering, why is the Ortega regime specifically targeting the church? What would you say?
Institutionally, the Catholic Church stands as I would say, they're in the unenviable position of having to be the only institution inside of Nicaragua that can challenge the atheistic, I think demonic, and I'm not saying that to be flippant, Ortega's wife claims to be a witch, and they do certain things that the Catholic Church understands. We can challenge them head on with prayer, peacefully, and that's why they targeted our priests, our bishops, our religious. Again, I wish the Holy See, if you've never followed Nicaragua, understand this has been happening since 1979. This is not new. Yeah. I hope the Holy See reconsiders their position and sends our people back.
Well, Jason, thank you for coming on and talking to us about this. We really appreciate it. It's so important to stay on top of it. God bless.
Thank you for having us. God bless.
All right, well, no doubt we have all felt the heat wave this summer, but you may be surprised to know that Monday was actually the hottest day ever recorded. Monday's global average temperature was 62.87 degrees. That's the hottest day on record, breaking the previous high set on July 6, 2023. The spike is driven by oceans that are not cooling down and an unseasonably warm Antarctica. Well, up next on EWTN News Nightly, blown over. Taiwan faces a storm with winds exceeding 100 miles per hour. Plus, a closer look at a 16th century saint and his influence on the city of Rome. In Nepal, authorities are investigating what caused a plane to crash immediately after takeoff. 18 people died. The pilot was the sole survivor. Airport officials say the plane was en route for maintenance work. Most of the passengers on board were either mechanics or airline employees. Witnesses say the plane took off, then immediately veered to the right. It crashed on the east side of the airport and then caught on fire. A powerful typhoon that killed 13 people in the Philippines makes landfall in Taiwan. Typhoon Gaime, with wind gusts of 113 miles per hour and heavy rains, knocked people to the ground. As you can see right there, Taiwan shuttered offices, schools, and tourist sites. In the Philippines, the storm displaced around 600,000 people. Finally tonight, this marks the 509th anniversary of one of the most pivotal figures in church history, St. Philip Neri, who is especially beloved in the city of Rome. EWTN Vatican Bureau Chief Andreas Tannhauser has more.
According to the Roman society, the man was a living saint. According to the educated nobility, he was a lunatic. Known as the second apostle of Rome, St. Philip Neri came from a wealthy Italian family in the service of the state. Yet, a life in politics is not what interested him.
St. Philip Neri cared for the boys and young men he met on the street. He was driven mainly by his interest in the real lives they were leading. He had no stereotypical model of holiness or rigid framework to propose. He was genuinely interested in what they were doing in their daily lives.
St. Philip Neri had a special talent for talking to people. He could convert good conversations into good works. Philip led by example. He tended to the poor, sick, and abandoned. He would also organize pilgrimages and passionately proclaim the word of God to all. Many admired Philip for his deep love for Christ and for souls. In fact, an autopsy at his death would later reveal that his heart had been physically enlarged and that 2 of his ribs had been broken to make room for it. Some of Philip's followers began living together in community. This was the beginning of the Oratory, the religious institute he founded.
The Oratory is based on charity towards the sick and the poor, and on providing real assistance to pilgrims. At the same time, it involves intellectual charity, including narrating the history of the Church, teaching about the lives of the saints, music, and pilgrimages. In St. Philip Neri's Oratory, there is everything, every human reality and every spiritual reality. And this is the heart of the Oratory. And from this spontaneously born community, the first priestly vocations began to emerge.
With the blessing of Pope Gregory XIII in 1575, the Oratory continued to flourish over the centuries, following the saint's death, attracting people from all kinds of backgrounds. To this day, the Oratory has carefully preserved the saint's relics. This includes his bed and shoes, as well as the chalice he used to celebrate Mass and the crucifix he held when he died. His incorrupt body can be found in the Church of Santa Maria in Vallicella in Rome. Thanks to his apostolate, St. Philip continues to remind the Church of its commitment to the salvation of souls and the importance of pastors to be with their flocks.
St. Philip Neri teaches us today that to reach God, the path of beauty is necessary. Reaching God through art, music, writings, and everything that is beautiful in the world is the most important path, a path to be favored. He favored it and taught his followers to do the same.
In Rome, Andreas Tannhauser, EWTN News Nightly.
And we thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Tracy Sabol. Good night and God bless.